how fast she's consuming that. And that cub definitely wants a piece, but he can't quite get there. I mean, that water is strong. If I was standing there, I'd be afraid of actually falling off. Mother bears really don't bring food to their cubs. The cubs have to just tear it away if she's tolerant of that. And it looks like, 402 is not going to move to a position where she's going to share that food with her cubs. Each one of these salmon contains about 4,500 calories. So in, again, just less than 5 minutes, she's taken in about 9,000 calories. During the course of the day, if there's a lot of fish in the river, they can eat 20 to 30 fish, really without any issues. So it's not uncommon when there's a lot of salmon in the river for bears to be eating 100,000 calories or more during a day, get their fill. And I think that's the reason that explains this concentration that we're seeing here this evening versus last night when there were 150, 200 salmon jumping a minute and very few bears at the waterfall from 6 to 8 p.m. Alaska time. One bear that I want to highlight before it walks away is an interesting character here. A bear that we never saw at Brooks Falls until last year. He was a bear that we saw in the fall, and when in September and October, bears at Brooks River fish the downstream of Brooks Falls because they're feeding for dead and dying salmon. The salmon are no longer migrating, so the waterfall is no longer a good place to fish in many years. And this bear was known to use the mouth of the river in the fall, but we never documented him in this at the waterfall in July until last year. This is number 775. He's nicknamed Lefty because he has that short left ear. He's an adult male. You can see he is he's not a small bear, but he's not really thick-bodied like some of the real dominant males that we have here. And he's actually pinched in between several adult males. So there's one big boy in the plunge pool near the waterfall right now. 775 is avoiding the approach of number 856, the most dominant bear on the river. We can recognize him just by his overall size. He's a really big guy, blondish ears. His disposition gives him away in a lot of instances because he walks through the river in a very sort of confident manner. He knows that virtually all other bears here will avoid him. So he rarely acknowledges sort of the presence of other bears unless he's trying to displace them from a food resource. Or in this case of this evening, a female bear that he might have the opportunity to mate with or want the opportunity to mate with. So getting back to 775 Lefty here, he's real easy to recognize. He has that short left ear. Has some scars on him, but they're not super distinctive. He will also steal fish. A lot of our bears around here, we see from year to year, and they can certainly change their behavior depending on certain conditions. Bears have the ability. I guess it could be described as a behavioral plasticity. They can change their behavior to sort of fit certain situations. Maybe 775 had not discovered Brooks Falls in the past. Maybe he did and we just didn't recognize him. He didn't always have that short left ear. The first photos we have of him when he was a younger bear his ears are symmetrical. So again, bears are very adaptable creatures. They have sometimes large home ranges. So this bear could have been finding a way to make a living without visiting Brooks Falls in the past. Maybe that food source, wherever it happened to be, just dried up, so to speak. Or maybe he was just wandering through this area and finally got a whiff of salmon at Brooks Falls. Now he's back this year. Last year when he arrived, he looked very hungry. He was moving around the waterfall very frantically, chasing other bears, chasing fish, stealing fish from other bears, and he even leapt off the waterfall, or leapt off the waterfall a couple of times. And that was caught live on the webcams, and that was a pretty wild sight to see him standing on the lip of the waterfall and jumping right down into the jacuzzi trying to catch a fish. So we'll keep an eye on him for you. I'm going to be scanning throughout the night, looking around to see what else can catch my attention. Many bears still kind of moving downstream. Let's pan down that way just so we can get a glimpse of what's happening down there. 856 actually moved down into that area. And he's been following a female maybe for the past few days. This female bear that's on the right, sort of right center, was seen mating with another bear maybe around 5:30 or 6 o'clock tonight when 856 wasn't sort of guarding his access to this female. And that's sort of the one of the challenges of being a big adult male is if you want to have the opportunity to mate with the female, you need to be following her nearly constantly until she is receptive to mating, because she may not, want you necessarily nearby. They're not always receptive to mating. Female bears go through a cycle of estrus. So maybe for a week or a few short days, they may be more receptive to mating than other times. The peak of the mating season here is June. Perhaps earlier tonight, 856 just left his guard down. He went to the waterfall to fish, and another adult male came over at just the right moment and started copulating with this female. Once 856, however, realized what was going on, he left his fishing spot, went right down there and broke up the party. So several bears in what we call the riffles area downstream. We talked about 402 on the lip, about some of the lessons maybe that cubs are learning how to fish here, watching other bears, watching them carefully, of course, and mother bears watching them carefully too for any threats. So there's risk involved up here. It's a challenging place to be. There's a lot of competition too, and that's one of the other things that you can take from watching these bears, is that they are competitors. The two bears that we see in the frame right now actually have competed with one another for several years. The wound that's on the back of the bear on the upper left, it actually is courtesy of the larger bear at lower right. So the bear on the upper left, pretty easy to recognize because he has a large open wound on his rump. He also has a healing wound on his left shoulder, and that's number 83. He's an adult male. The one closer to us is number 747. He's one of the more dominant bears on the river, maybe number 2 in dominance here. 856 is the most dominant bear. And I recognize 747 just based on his overall size. He's a monster bear. You watching on the webcam here, it's going to be kind of hard to get a good perspective on just how big this bear actually is. But he's a very large animal. Average weight for an adult male here in Katmai during midsummer, 700 to 900 pounds. He's pushing that upper weight limit. He has sort of peg-like ears, wide-set ears, cinnamon brown color. Lacks a lot of distinctive scars, but he also has many small scars and wounds on him, and that's typical of adult males, especially at this time of the year when they're shedding their fur. They get their wounds and scars from competing with other bears. Sometimes fighting over a fishing spot, an animal carcass, sometimes fighting over females, or just to maintain their place in the bear hierarchy.